Hey everybody, welcome back to Baking with Rosehill Sourdough. This is Mike, and today I'm going to be teaching you one of my absolute favorite recipes. This is my overnight sourdough focaccia recipe. This is one of my absolute easiest recipes to master. There's a little bit of technique that you'll learn with a coil fold, but outside of getting used to that and working with a little bit higher hydration dough, once you master this, you'll feel comfortable working with most doughs, especially those that are a little bit higher hydration. This is one of my favorites because it's so easy to do. Simply make the dough in the evening, let the dough sit out overnight, and bake in the morning. Alternatively, you can place the dough into the fridge in the morning and then bake it later that evening. Let's get started. So for this recipe, you're going to start with 300 grams of cool water. My target dough temperature for this dough is around 65 degrees Fahrenheit, so you don't want to use warm water for this because it's fermenting overnight. It'll ferment a little bit too quickly and you run the risk of overproofing the dough. To that, I'm going to add 11 grams of salt and 11 grams of olive oil. I'm going to swirl the water around to fully dissolve the salt and break up the olive oil a bit. To that, I'm going to add 60 grams of my sourdough culture that I fed 8 to 12 hours ago and that has doubled in volume. I'm going to use my spatula to break that up a bit. It doesn't need to be broken up completely. You'll know it's ready when the water starts to turn milky in color. Now I'm going to add 375 grams of my unbleached bread flour, and I'm going to use my spatula to mix this all up. When I'm mixing here, I'm not trying to knead the dough. All I'm trying to do is fully incorporate the flour. And you'll know when it's ready when there's no more dry flour left in the bottom of the bowl. Now I'm simply going to cover it with a lid or a wet towel. I'm going to set a timer for 1 hour. Now that my first hour is up, I'm going to do my first fold on the dough. With lightly wet hands, just wetting the fingertips and rubbing my hands together, I'm going to do a stretch and fold. I'm going to pinch a part of the dough, lift it up gently, stretch it and fold it over the top of the dough. Rotate the dough a little bit, pinch again, stretch and fold, and continue all the way around the dough until a ball starts to form. At that point, I'm going to flip the dough over so that the seam side I just created is down and the smooth side of my dough ball is up. I'm going to lift the dough out of the bowl gently and tuck that bit back over and under the dough. You don't need a perfectly smooth dough ball at this point. You're just starting the process of creating a smooth side and a seam side to your dough. And at this point, our smooth side should be up and our seam side should be down. I'm going to cover it again and set a 1 hour timer. Now that my hour's up, I'm going to come back and perform a coil fold on this dough. I'm going to lightly wet my hands and I'm going to work my way around the dough, just to loosen it up from the bottom of the bowl. Once it's loose, I'm going to come in from both sides and gently pull up on the dough and allow the flap to fold underneath it and place the dough back down on itself. I'm going to give the bowl a half turn and do the exact same thing. Then a quarter turn and do it one more time. This process is called coil folding. Typically I do this 4 to 6 times until a nice smooth dough ball starts to appear. Now I've got a nice smooth dough ball. I'm going to cover the dough with a wet towel or lid and set a timer for 1 hour. Now that my hour's up, I'm going to come back and do the exact same coil fold procedure one more time. Again, covering it and setting a timer for 1 hour. Now that it's been another hour, I'm going to get my pan ready for my overnight rest. I'm going to take my 9-inch round cake pan and oil it slightly with olive oil using a silicone brush to make sure that all the surfaces, including the sides, are covered in a thin layer of oil. I'm then going to stretch my dough one more time using a coil fold technique with lightly wet hands, and then transfer the dough from my bowl into this lightly oiled 9-inch cake pan. I'm now going to cover my dough with a wet towel and let it rest overnight somewhere cool in my house, where it can maintain a temperature somewhere around 65 degrees Fahrenheit. Alright, now it's the morning, and I'm going to uncover my dough and put a little bit of olive oil on top, and with wet hands gently spread the olive oil around the top surface of the dough. Then with gentle pressure, I'm going to dimple the dough by pressing my fingertips all the way down to the bottom of the dough, and repeating this as necessary to form dimples across the whole surface of the dough. One of my favorite things about focaccia is you can really put anything on it. My go-to is a very simple sea salt focaccia, and Malden sea salt flakes are my favorite salt to use. I've got my oven preheated to 450 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm going to put my focaccia in there for 20 minutes, making sure to check about 10 minutes in and turning it 180 degrees. And this is what it looks like right out of the oven. Then take it out of the pan and move it to a cooling rack and allow it to cool for at least an hour before cutting into it. Now that it's cool, I'm going to cut into the focaccia, and this is what we're looking for, a nice, thick, fluffy focaccia with a big airy crumb. Thank you so much for coming by and checking out this video. If you liked what you saw, please give it a thumbs up. If you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments below. If you'd like to see more of my recipes and tips and tricks, please follow me on Instagram at Rosehill Sourdough. And all of these recipes are included in my ebook available on my website, rosehillsourdough.com. Thanks for coming by.